Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny along with Kenny Squared. Welcome back to the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, did you see that they imploded the Tropicana Hotel in the middle of Las Vegas last night? Why would I even mention that? Why is that important to us sports fans?
Vegas. Is that for the A's?
Yeah, that's the proposed site of where the A's new stadium would be at. And I thought it would be like on the outskirts somewhere, man. That is like kind of in the heart of downtown Vegas. Our your brother-in-law, my son-in-law, Tim, would probably be able to tell us a little bit better exactly where it's at. But it looked to me, I remember the couple of times I've been there, I've seen that Tropicana Hotel. That's one of the oldest in Vegas. But it got imploded. That was amazing. Kenny, Luis Tiant passed away this week. I think you had sent me that. And in 1974, he was 22 and 13 with a 2.92 ERA. That wasn't really his best year. His best year was 1968. He was 21 and 9 with a 1.60 ERA. But I want to go back to 74 for a second because he had 25 complete games. And do you know he pitched, and it was an extra inning game, regular season against the Angels in the middle of the summer. And do you know that he pitched 14 complete innings?
Wow.
That's amazing, right? They didn't keep pitch counts then, but they estimate looking back at replays that he had about 195 pitches.
People would
And
have a heart attack if that happened today.
oh my gosh, we taking guys out when they have like 60 or 70. Oh my gosh. Before we got on, I was able to watch a little bit of the Aaron Rodgers interview with Pat McAfee, and Aaron said that we're going to get more into Robert Salah in just a bit, but he said he had nothing to do with it. Woody Johnson called him Monday evening just to see how he was doing and keep the faith and everything like that, and said he really liked his coach and he was a great person. Are you buying it?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
All right. You ready to get this started?
Yeah, let's get into
Okay.
it.
All right. This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers. Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. I'm chuckling because we left off with Aaron Rodgers and you said you weren't buying it, but we're gonna come back to that because I want us to start with baseball first, if that's okay, and we'll come back to football. Um, and so we it was last Thursday, right? That the Mets, Pete Alonso hits that 3-run homer in the ninth inning and they eliminate the Brewers. So we didn't get a chance to talk about that, but we don't have to specifically get too far into that. But I just wanted to get your take on, as I was writing this down as I was preparing today, that the Orioles, the Brewers, the Braves, and the Astros were the first ones eliminated. Now I know there's no love lost with you in the Astros, so but are you surprised at those four teams? When you look at it, the Orioles, it was definitely a drop off from last year, right? I think they won 101 or 102 games last year, 91, 92 games. They still had a really good year. The Brewers, it seems like this was one of their best regular seasons to me. They ran away with the division. The Braves, I wasn't too surprised. I think what the Braves did was fantastic, just getting into the playoffs with all the injuries they had. And I think the Astros, I think that, it was 7 straight years, right? They were in the ALCS. So my take
Yeah.
was that it's time. They're probably going to lose one or two players, key players to free agency. What was your take on those four teams?
Um, I can also get a little bit more into what I would change
Yeah,
in a minute
please.
here.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Um, but I think probably to me the most surprising, I know that the Mets have had like this absolutely insanely magical run here in the last, I don't know, 10 days or so.
Yep.
But um the Brewers did have they were very quietly a very good team.
Yeah.
And and I think to me still what's so surprising, not necessarily that the Mets won, because I think what they've done has shown like I forgot what the it's a weird stat like that they've lost every game that they didn't score first or something like that. I don't know. But
Yeah.
um the fact that they did it off of Devin Williams is
Yeah.
still surprising.
Yeah.
Um you had texted it to me before. There's still no one like Mariano Rivera.
No.
Um
No.
I mean, Clase gave up 5 runs all year
Which
and
was
gives up a 3 run
amazing.
home run.
I mean, that was amazing. When you told me that the Tigers were winning, because I didn't get a chance to see that game. I was stunned. But go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, I think the Braves, I agree. Like the fact that they were able to get to the playoffs is really nice and good for them. Um, but I don't know. Uh, we might have a little bit like this might be a louder voice in a couple days, depending on how the rest of these divisions, well, how all of the division series shake out. Because no one's in the next round yet. Things can change. We see it all the time. But I'm just gonna rattle off a few stats here. Um, the National League teams that have had a bye, and this is 3 years now. Like it's not, it's not a huge sample size, but something.
Hmm.
They're 5-16 in the NLDS, and no team that has had a bye in the National League has won a series.
That's just
Um,
unbelievable. Even though it's a relatively small sample, it's still unbelievable. Go ahead.
yeah. 3 out of 8 teams that have had the bye have advanced to the league championship series. Now that percentage can go down if the Padres win tonight, if the Mets win tonight. Um, but the only 3 are the Astros twice and the Yankees.
Hmm.
2022.
Hmm.
Uh, and with the wild card, I don't know, something has to change here because every team that's won game one of the wild card series has won the whole thing, and you would think that that shouldn't be the case.
Hmm.
But also, if the Mets aren't involved, it's always a sweep.
Yeah.
Which ironically the Mets have only been in the 3 game series, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and obviously that doesn't include 2020 because 2020 is weird and you can't really necessarily go by it, especially since the format was different.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's a few things that I have that are issues with it. Because I mean I look at the Tigers, the Royals, the Mets, and the Padres. Like they took care of business, so I'm not gonna say they shouldn't have been in. Um, but there's a few things that I think baseball can do better.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Um,
What? I'm
First,
anxious to hear that.
I have 4 things here. First and
Yeah.
foremost, no game should be starting before 5 p.m. local time. Um, the Tigers are playing their first playoff game against the Guardians at home since 2012. It's been a minute,
Hmm.
and they're playing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, baseball. You can at least make that a 5, 6 o'clock game at night.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
noontime out west.
yeah,
So nobody out west is going to be watching that.
no, and like, because like the Orioles, they had a hard time like filling their stadium. That's because they had like 2 games that were in the middle of the day.
Right.
Um, like Tiger fans deserve to have like a 6 or 7 o'clock start time, so that like you can really pack out Comerica Park and have a good time with it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like, and I think that can also like you're talking teams are like getting cost revenue, things like that. Um, so I think that's number one. And during the weekends, fine. A 1 o'clock playoff game on a Saturday is gonna hurt anyone. Same with like Sunday or whatever. Um, Next thing, I think that prime time should rotate among series, unless it's
Hmm.
like extreme coast to coast games.
Hmm.
So if you have just like a team on the East Coast and or 2 teams on the East Coast, 2 teams on the West Coast, then obviously it's going to be hard to do. But
Yeah.
like why, like you know that if God forbid the Yankees get eliminated, um, the ALCS is going to be the early game the entire time.
Yeah.
Um, whether you have the Padres or the Dodgers in there, whether you have the Phillies or the Mets in there, like they're always going to be the early game. To
Yeah.
me, they should flip flop it. I think in the LCS they typically do, but they don't with the division series, and they should.
No. Yeah. I think the LCS is predetermined the times. National and American League. But you're right in the division series.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the way they do it is just
Yeah.
like why can't we have like a game that starts at like 5, 6, 7, and 8? And like if games are overlapping, they're overlapping. Like that
Yeah.
happens and we should be fine with it.
Yeah.
Next thing. I think rounds should be able to slightly overlap, and a series should always start 2 days after you know what the matchup is. Like enough with these longer layoffs. I think part of the issue here is all four of these teams with buys basically had a week off. You could argue like a week and a half off. I mean, the Yankees' last meaningful game was the Thursday before the season ended, and then they had kind of a meaningless series against the Pirates, and then they had another 6 days off until they played again.
Mm.
Um, Dodgers, kind of the same thing. They wrapped up their division early. The
Mm.
Phillies, like to me, what they should do is if the wild card ends early, just start the division series early, even if it means they take a couple extra days, which the American League division series took an extra couple days anyway. Like
Mm.
they played Saturday and then they played Monday. So I wonder if that would change some of those numbers I read earlier. Last thing I would do is completely revamp the wild card round. I think I've suggested this before, but I'll suggest it again. Home team needs to win one game, the road team needs to win two. That way,
Mm.
it's automatically an elimination game. There's already that sense of urgency.
Mm.
And I mean, the third game has barely been used anyway.
Yeah.
So why just get rid of it? And I think
Yeah.
it could add an extra layer of intrigue. And also like if you're looking at the schedule, season ends Sunday, um, travel day Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is the wild card. If you have a couple of one gamers in there, you can start the division series Thursday. So teams are only getting like 4 days off as opposed to 6. And then
Yeah.
kind of go from there. So that would be my proposal.
I like all of those. I got a few questions for you, and I want to make an example of something. I really liked it. I remember you did suggest this last year. I really liked the 2 out of 3. But if the home team wins one of those games, it's over. I really like. I think that would really add, and it's not exactly one and done like the wild card was for a few years, for several years actually. Um, but it gives that would be, I think, really exciting. I didn't get it all the non-travel day off. That threw off rotations and everything like that, right? Because when the Tigers and Indians and the Tigers and the Guardians started their series, they played Saturday and then they were off Sunday. That just didn't make any sense to me because there wasn't any travel. So I'm not sure why they do that. Just put the games on, let them overlap. Again, if they're on, FS1, TBS, I mean, people are going to be able to make their decisions as to what to watch. I don't think you should do that past the division series round, overlap the games when you won't have to anyway once you get to the LCS. But Kenny, here's the question I have for you because there's definitely something to this sitting out, but it's a combination, I think. And I'll go back as far as 1954 when the Giants swept the Indians in the World Series after the Indians won 113 games. And the Giants, I think, won 95, something like that. But the Giants win a pennant race up until the last day. And the Indians wrapped up the division early in September. Oh, not the division, the league back then. Same happened in 69 and 73 with the Mets and the Orioles. The Orioles ran away with the East, and the Mets win a race until the last week of the season. And 73, same thing. The Mets had to win on the last day while the Reds ran away with the West that year. And the Mets, beat the Reds in the division series, so in the ALCS. So I think there's a combination though of sitting out and these tight games. I mean, the Mets have been playing do or die games since early September. I mean, every series was big for them because they were locked in such a pennant race with the Diamondbacks, the Braves, Padres. Whereas that, we're seeing with the Phillies, no one really challenged the Phillies on the division all year. I think the Braves got within like 4 or 5 games a little bit later. So did the Mets. But the Phillies were going to win the East. They really won the East back like in June and July when they built that big lead. So I think between that and then sitting out is what's causing this now. So my question to you is, how do you reward the teams that have the best records? Because it's crazy that you think these teams with the best records aren't going to advance past the division series.
I don't know. Because like I will say this, if the Yankees are gone and the Dodgers are gone
Oh,
and the Phillies are gone,
baseball will be praying for the
like
Mets.
there goes your ratings.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
like the Mets will bring an audience, but
Right. Yeah.
um
Yeah. They could
so
be
I
praying for the Mets.
yeah,
Yeah, it could be a Padres Royals World Series, which, as baseball fans like you and I, okay, we'll watch it, but it'll probably get the same ratings it got last year.
yeah. So I think maybe another option, well, I would hate to add to the playoff field. Another option would be adding two more teams in each division or in each league, making the playoffs. So it's an 8 team bracket as opposed to six,
Hmm.
which would eliminate the buys. Or another option could be if you are a division winner, you can opt to play in the wild card round. I don't know if
Mm.
anyone would do that though. Because I'd rather the Yankees face the Royals in a 5 game series as opposed to a three, but I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I think it was Bryce Harper that I saw the clip. They asked him when the Mets won game one, and the a reporter asked him, "Hey, so how much was this that you guys just sat around all week?" And he got very offended. He said, it meant nothing. He said, we didn't sit around all week. We were practicing, obviously, and preparing and going over scouting reports, but it's not the same. And I think, Kenny, you were making this point. I don't know if you said these words, but so stop me if it's not what you meant. Um, I, I don't know why the playoffs should try to mimic the regular season as much as possible. When is there ever a time in the regular season that a team gets a week off? It just doesn't happen in baseball. The All-Star break, right? Now they get a week off in the All-Star break, about a week, right? A little less. But it really doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen where you play one game, you have a day off, and you don't travel, and then you play another game. That typically doesn't happen either. And most, I want to say at least 90%, Ken, if you think about it, at the most, or maybe it's 80 or 85%, if you think about a regular week in the regular season, in July, let's say, how many day games would the Yankees play? Maybe they play a getaway day game during the week and a Sunday day game. So 2 out of 6 or 7 games are day games. Here, I mean, the Tigers and Cleveland are playing every day in the daytime and not at night, So I think all of that factors in where it gets the teams off of their routine, especially the teams that are sitting out a week. And as you said, even though they weren't sitting out, so to speak, they were playing meaningless games. And so mentally they're like sitting out. So I don't know, man. I I mean, I think see, so can I say two sports where this doesn't happen? The NBA and the NHL. Everybody plays right away. There's no buys. Now there's a couple of buys in the NFL, and we've seen it sometimes where these top teams get bumped off in the wild card round or in the next round, um, in the division round. But we don't see that usually in the NBA. I mean, it's like let's just go, and they don't have these weird days off like that either. In the NBA and NHL playoffs. I mean, now it's more teams that get in, but your top team The only thing we have seen, and we didn't see it this year, but we saw it for a lot of years, right? Was the team, well, the Rangers didn't get to the finals, and the Rangers did have the best regular season record, but they did get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But how many times in hockey over the last 10, 12 years, we saw the number one seed, the President's Trophy winner, get bumped in the first round by the number eight seed? That happened quite a few times. So I don't know, but this is definitely an issue for baseball. I mean, there's a chance, like you said. I mean, I hope the Phillies go home because I want the Mets to win. We'll get into Padres Dodgers, which has been quite a series as well. But of course, they want the Yankees and Dodgers in there. I'd like to see Yankees and Dodgers if the Mets go home. You know what I mean? So, I mean, come on.
Yeah, and also like, okay, so let's say they added a couple teams. The last two teams eliminated in the American League were the Mariners and the Twins. If the Yankees can't win 2 out of 3 against the Twins, they don't deserve to be in the
Right,
playoffs anyway.
right, right.
Honestly, same with the Guardians. I know that the Mariners have great starting pitching, but so do the Guardians. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. And I agree. Like the playoffs, like I understand that there's gonna be changes, like there's gonna be some variation, but the playoffs should mimic as best the regular season as possible. And
exactly.
right now, baseball doesn't. Even
No,
like when they did the 1 game playoff, like
yeah,
that's not how baseball works.
yeah. Here's my last point, and then we could talk about the games. I think those are great suggestions you had. Um, it worked out in my favor yesterday because I've seen Aaron Nola enough um, over the last 5, 7, 8 years. I know he's a veteran. He's always pitched well against the Mets. The Mets have every once in a while can get a couple of big hits off of him. Boy, oh boy, the Mets seemed like they were easily handling his fastball yesterday because his fastball had no movement. And Nola is such a good pitcher because he has that great curveball to mix in, and he wasn't. Every first pitch was a straight on fastball. But I just wonder if that's because he's way off his routine. I mean, some of these guys haven't pitched in 10, 12 days, and pitchers especially are creatures of habit, you know? So I I don't know. I think baseball will look at it this year. Trust me, if the Yankees and the Dodgers get bumped here, baseball's going to look at it, you know, and they're going to look hard at it because they're like, oh man, you know. But let's talk about the games. And what surprised you the most here so far in this division series rounds?
Um, I don't know. We talked a little bit about Place's faux pas there.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. Part of me thinks the Phillies. I'd seen a thing that um the Phillies are doing what the Braves have done. The Braves have already done what the Mets have done. So of course the Mets are doing what the Phillies are doing.
right.
So which I thought was kind of funny. Um, I guess part of me is just really surprised that the Dodgers are doing what the Dodgers have done basically every year. Um, they always have a great record. And aside from the 2020 season, like they've never made it back to like the top where they should be. I mean, and I know that Freeman is dealing with an injury and
Yeah,
Shohei's not pitching, but like you have 3 MVPs on that team.
yeah.
And the Padres, I mean, at this point, is there any doubt that they're going to lose tonight? Uh,
The Padres right
like
now,
they're,
even with the big three, it's just my opinion. I think the Padres overall are a better team than the Dodgers at this very moment because they have their pitching lined up and the Dodgers really don't. You know, Walker Buehler is just not himself. I mean, you know, we saw that regular season game when I forgot who they were playing, a Sunday night game, and I was texting you and saying he really doesn't look like himself. But what do the Dodgers do if they get bumped here? Which I don't think anybody would be surprised if the Padres win tonight.
I don't know, they're gonna have to address their starting pitching. Um, because Dylan Cease is going for the Padres,
I,
and the Dodgers are going with a bullpen game.
I mean, that's just crazy. And so they're at a big disadvantage when it came to their pitching. But if you go position by position, man, the Padres, even if you take away the big three, after that, and I'm not saying the Dodgers don't have some excellent players like Muncy's not himself as he was a couple of years ago. Gavin Lux is very good. Will Smith seems to have lost a little bit of a step. But I mean, when you now you look at Roz, I mean, Fernando Tatis, I mean, this guy, I mean, is he clutch? I mean, he loves the spotlight in the moment. Now, I mean, he's gotten carried away with the standing and watching. I don't know if you saw his home run last night, but he must have stood at home, played a good 10 seconds. I mean, that's already part of baseball's culture. So there's not much I want to say about that too much, but oh my gosh. But it gets him drilled the other night, right? The next time he comes up, by Flattery. And then of course, now Manny, who are you fooling? Now, Manny Machado, I've admired the way. Remember, a couple of years ago, we were saying how weird the Padres were, right? Because they had all the talent. And there was some people that were saying maybe it's because Juan Soto's not on the team anymore. I think that's ludicrous because Soto is not a troublemaker. You know, Soto's nobody has ever complained about Juan Soto, but Machado, I think, has stepped up as a little bit more of a leader these last couple of years. And Machado is still an all-world type player, and he's been in these playoffs so many times, right? Back with Baltimore when they were good, and then with the Dodgers, and now here with the Padres. So, but what he did the other night, come on. I mean, sometimes you and I have been to a million games. We'll see after they warm up, they'll just toss the ball to the bat boy or whoever, right, in the opposing dugout. They never fling the ball. The bat boy was nowhere near. They never fling the ball like he did. Come on, he was sending a message because he was mad that they drilled his best player. He said that after, but then he totally, you know, he totally didn't own up to the rest of it. But what the Dodger fans did then was ludicrous. I mean, come on, you can't do that. But it's a nice rivalry there. I didn't think anything would carry over last night. But when I went to bed, it was 6-5, and like the Hernandez, who I really like, hit that grand slam off Michael King, and I'm like, okay, the Dodgers might come back and win this. And I woke up in the morning, and it was same score as it was when I went to bed in the fifth inning. So I mean, I don't know what to make of the Dodgers except that their pitching is just not ready for this. I never thought their bullpen was all that good. I'm surprised a team that spent that much money did not address their bullpen either. But the Padres just seem like the Padres definitely have a better bullpen, especially since they got Tanner Scott. They just seem like a better complete team than the Dodgers right now. So talk to me about the Yankees. What are we looking at, and what are we going to see here as they now go to Kansas City?
I forgot who it was. Maybe it was Derek Jeter. I don't remember who, but I think going on the road is going to help them. Um,
Okay.
it would be too dramatic to say that like the season lies in the balance tonight because it doesn't. Um, you have Garrett Cole going game 4, and then you have game 5 at home. So, but I saw this, and I don't know. I'll just read this. When the count reaches 2 strikes, Aaron Judge is 13 for 133, or 113 for 113. Sorry, batting 115 in the playoffs with 2 homers and 70 strikeouts. In his last 20 plate appearances with 2 strikes, Judge is 0 for 18 with 2 walks and 11 strikeouts. Since Game 3 of the 2019 Division Series, Judge has had 66 playoff plate appearances, reached 2 strikes. He has 40 strikeouts, 6 walks, and 3 hits, all singles. None have left the infield. His last postseason extra base hit with 2 strikes was against David Price in the 2018 Division Series. Judge has not been hit. And I don't think it's that he's not clutch in the playoffs. I think that's a little bit over exaggerated.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like at least the 2022 playoffs, there was nobody else in that lineup. Like he was the offense. That's why he won the MVP.
Right.
But he does have guys around him. And I kind of feel like the game turned a little bit in game 2 when in the first setting he struck out, leaving a couple guys on. They need him to produce, and I don't know, maybe going to another park kind of helps. I think it's going to take a little bit of the pressure off of him. Because like
Okay.
yes, they have some guys that have playoff experience. I think Juan Soto, I think with Giancarlo Stanton, obviously Judge. But you still have a lot of guys that don't have much. Um, I didn't include Glaber in there, but like a guy like Jazz Chisholm, who also should keep his mouth shut because the last thing you want to do is give fuel to a team that just won the last game.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but guys like him, Austin Wells, Verdugo, even to some extent, like guys that don't have as much playoff experience and don't have that Volpe. I think getting away from Yankee Stadium will kind of help that.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I'm really interested to see how Clark Schmidt is going to play
Mhm.
because uh, he hasn't played since the last day of the season.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah. This is where, the time off, like we just talked about. Um,
yeah, so I don't know, but I think also they have Luis Heel, so he'll probably like piggyback off of him. The bullpen's been great though, so I can't really fault them for that.
yeah. Does this come back to Yankee Stadium or do the Yankees close it out there in Kansas City?
I think they might close it out at Kansas City.
Okay.
That's what I'm kind of hoping. Uh, just kind of shut the door a little bit.
Okay.
Because this is the series that the Yankees should win.
Yeah.
Whether or not they do it is another thing, but like
Hmm.
they should like I know Kansas City isn't a great matchup for them. They're a fast team, they're a team that has contact and they've got great pitching.
Yeah.
Um, but also the Yankees have the talent that they can overcome that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go with Mets Phillies real quick. I don't remember many teams that have played three of like all-time classic games within a week with the Mets and the Braves, that classic game where they won the first game of the doubleheader, game three against the Brewers, and then game two with the Phillies was just unbelievable. And I couldn't enjoy the game as you've been finding out now because your stomach is just in knots, when you have a team that you're rooting for in these games. And then and so are you thinking the Mets can put this away at Citi Field and not have to make that trip back to Philly?
I think so. I think the Phillies might be done. Um, because like you can't even you have a good lead. It's the seventh inning. You can't be secure in that if you're the Phillies.
Yeah, that
I
bullpen's
mean,
not that
I think
great
of
either. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think with Saturday, Zach Wheeler was like
Oh,
just punishing the Mets
oh,
for not re-signing him.
yeah.
Um, like he looked absolutely dominant, and then he leaves, and the Mets are like, "All right,
Yeah.
let's win this game." Like it's just
No.
absolutely incredible.
Now, I shouldn't say that about because the Phillies bullpen had a couple of all-stars, right? But they, this is again, I'll just mention Mariano one more time. This is where you really appreciate him because these guys that had great seasons, they're melting down. Hoffman and their left-hander are just melting down here against the Mets. I mean, I'm glad, but and Class A giving up a home run. I had to look at that twice when you sent that to me because I missed that game. I was like, he gave up a home run to who? Kerry Carpenter. I mean, and I know Kerry Carpenter is a decent player, but my goodness, yeah, I think. Listen, I will say this Met team is special. They It's not like they've just been playing well this last week or two. They've played well for a long time now, and it's definitely a little bit over their heads. I'll say that. But I like the matchup tonight. Ranger Suarez has been good, but he was better in the first half. He hasn't been that great in the second half. Another all-star. And Jose Quintana has been fantastic. What he did to the Brewers last week. He's been fantastic last month of the season, and I'm sure they'll put the stats up tonight. His last 5 or 6 starts, he's been unbelievable. So I like the Mets' chances to close it out tonight. I don't want to go back to Philly. That crowd is crazy there. But the Met crowd showed up for sure. Uh, what are your thoughts on, and then we'll jump to the NFL. We got a bunch to cover. I really want to hear your thoughts on what's happening there in Cleveland with the Browns. But what are your thoughts there with the Tigers and Guardians? Or folks showed up for those games there in Cleveland. I mean, they had big sellouts and the crowd was loud, and they were pretty shocked when Class A gave up that home run when I saw the highlights, to it. Uh, And so, what's the feeling like there in Cleveland with this series and the Tigers? Now they have gotten hot in the last month. They didn't play that great all year long, but they're a good team. They're scrappy. They have some very good players, but they've got good pitching too. Some of the arms coming out of that bullpen surprised me. What's the thoughts here? Do you think the Guardians are gonna rise up and win a couple of games here in Detroit, put it away, or what are you thinking?
I feel like this one's probably going to go back to Cleveland, but I
Okay.
do think that they'll win it. Um, I don't know. It just kind of seems like like the teams are kind of even though I don't think they actually are.
Hmm.
Um, but I do agree that like the Tigers, they've been playing with house money for like a month. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. The Guardians are good, and I can't see them not getting to the championship series at least this year. But we'll see. I mean, this is a year of you never know. The Royals, Tigers, teams that lost a lot of games last year, and they're right there in the thick of it. Let's go ahead and switch to the NFL. We've got a lot to talk about in baseball, but next week. But let's go ahead and switch to the NFL. I guess we'll start with the biggest story with Salah being fired yesterday. Did that surprise you?
A little bit. I
Mhm.
mean, I guess I'm not surprised. Like if we were to do I don't know, like a ranking of coaches that we thought would not make it through the season, Salah would be high on that list.
Yeah.
Especially like I don't believe Aaron Rodgers one bit that he had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Um, especially since there was like reports that supposedly they were considering firing Matt Hackett,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, they decide not to, and they fire Robert Saleh. But like the problems in the offense, Saleh's a defensive guy, and the Jets' defense has been pretty good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I don't know. It's gonna start getting really ugly really quickly if the Jets keep losing.
Well, I guess that's also why I wasn't too taken aback. The game with the Vikings only got to see maybe about the last 10 minutes. And it's exactly what you said. The defense is good, but the Vikings are very good, obviously. But that interception at the end, that was, I thought, on Rodgers because he had a step, on the defensive back there, and there wasn't double coverage back there. So it was a good read and everything, but he underthrew it. And so I'm hesitant now to really jump on Rodgers because I don't want to say anything now that I'm going to have to walk back. There's still 12 games left. The Jets don't need Devontae Adams. I like Devontae Adams. He's a great player, but they don't need him. They could use Reddick, I think, a lot more, but that seems to be a done deal. I mean, it's week going into week 6, and we haven't heard anything with him. But I think the team we have now should be a playoff team. And I like to see Rodgers turn it around because I'm putting a lot of it on him now these last couple of games. He's used to playing in bad weather. The game against Denver, we know it was raining, but he played all those years in Green Bay and snowstorms and everything like that. Here's the thing, he's not Tom Brady. Tom Brady at 41 years old was still thriving and winning Super Bowls. Rodgers, because of the injury, I think, and because of his age now, he just looks old to me. But that doesn't mean that they still can't make a run here. And Salah, I mean, after the first year, I'm not second guessing here. After the first year, I never thought he was the coach for the Jets. I don't know why the Jets don't go out and get a top tier coach like a Mike Vrabel or someone like that, or heck, even Bill Belichick, maybe. I but Salah seems like such a nice guy, and the players seem to really like him. I'm not sure. I don't put much credence also into what Rodgers said because I mean, it was very clear on the screen when Salah went to hug him and he pushed him away and stared him down. He said they were fooling around. It didn't look like they were fooling around. You know what I mean? It just, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. But you hate to see anybody get fired. But there's heavy, heavy expectations on the Jets. And you lived in New York long enough to know what that looks and feels like. You know what they're saying on WFAN every day. I mean, it just the pressure is so much. I mean, this is the owner now calling up and making this decision, not the GM. That tells you that the GM is on the hot seat as well. So I just they know it's a very small window. We lived through this with Brett Favre, right? We had him for 1 year and we didn't make the playoffs in that year. We were 8-5 or whatever we were, 8-4, and we lost the last 4 games. We were 8-3. I'm sorry. We lost the last 5 games. And so it's a very short window because you look at Rodgers now and you're saying, is he going to play till he's 44, 45? I don't think so. You know? And besides, he also has other interests, you could tell, right? So I don't know. I hate to see anybody get fired, but I think they had to make a change.
Yeah, well, also if it helps, Jets play the Bills this weekend.
Yeah.
You win the game, you're in first place.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they're 2-3. There's 12 games left. So that's why I guess so it's a feel of the team, right? The game with the Broncos and the Vikings, it just didn't look that good. So I think Johnson must have thought that it was going to continue to go backwards there. It can't be as bad as what's going on in Cleveland, though. The Browns are what now, 1-4, right? Kenny, when I
Yep.
tell you that I have seen some videos from the sports radio station out there, the biggest station, is it called 97 something the fan or something like that out there? Whatever the big
Yeah.
sports talk is there. Oh my gosh. And it's some of the pressure is coming a little bit off from what I see, and you're the insider there, from Watson onto Stepanski, and they're getting killed for like letting Joe Flacco walk away. Flacco's winning games with the Colts now. I don't know what to make of anything. I thought Watson had a terrible game, and I hated to see this, Ken. I'm sure you saw it at the end because that game was on here, so I got to watch a good chunk of it. But was it towards the end of the first half where he just walked off, and the coach is like, "What are you doing? We're not spending a time out here," and he just walked off because he thought he was gonna go for the field goal, whatever it was. If you're a leader on the team, you can't do that. Now, listen, I get it that he's frustrated, right? But you're the leader of that team, or you're supposed to be. You can't do that. I'm sorry, man. I don't know what Stefanski's waiting on with Jameis Winston. I mean, so give us a breakdown on what's happening there in Cleveland with the Browns.
I mean, you said it well. I do think there's a little bit of blowback with Stefanski, but I had heard this actually, it popped up on my Instagram feed from Dan Levitard. Um, do you know that the Browns' offensive performance was one of their worst in history? Not just like this year, but like since they returned back to Cleveland in the
Uh,
99.
I
Like,
didn't know that, but it was bad. And it's not like the Commanders have the best defense in the league either, you know?
uh, but yeah, I don't know. I think they just got to go with Jameis. Deshaun Watson seems checked out, and I know he's probably crying in his bed at night with millions of dollars around, um, but it's just I don't know. Because I remember we talked about it earlier in the year where it kind of seemed like the teams kind of turned on him. I feel like he's just fully checked out. Um, the the walking off the field without like checking in, like, oh, like not only to me does that show that you don't care, but it also shows that like you don't have that competitive grit anymore, like that. Because like most people, like it's 4th and 3 from our own 8. Like, oh, let's go for it. Like we can do it. I know, like, but he doesn't even believe in himself anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
There's definitely a
and
self-confidence thing there too. We're not going to know this, man, for a while. I don't think we're going to know it this year. I am just curious what the heck has happened to him. I just, at that age, to just lose it the way he has. I mean, he's shown a few flashes, right? But for the most part, Kenny, he's been poor. Um, all right, I want to just mention the Giants real quick, and then and you have me cracking up. Then please go through your list. because I think I have a couple of questions to pepper at you on the list. I think it's great. But I never pat myself on the back, but I'll pat myself on the back. I did say last week, I think this is a bad matchup for the Seahawks. For some reason, I just felt like the Seahawks get overlooked. They've got so much talent and they're playing in their home field. I thought they just overlooked the Giants, but the Giants played extremely well, man. Their running back is another, I think, guy that's got some talent, and the Giants, so they played well on all sides of the ball. I really, I was like looking at that. I was like, what's wrong with Seattle? And Geno Smith was frustrated pretty easy for him because he seems to have really matured as a quarterback. And it was funny because I didn't watch much of that game either. I was going back and forth to the baseball game. But when I texted you, like, I don't know, but I'm sorry, I'm watching the Yankees, Oh, you were watching baseball. It just, so good win for the Giants. They're on Sunday night against the Bengals, which right now should be a winnable game. And so, the Giants, you might all of a sudden be looking up and you're 3-3, after a pretty rocky start. So we'll see. We'll see. I liked what they did. All right, go through your list.
Yeah, and then they also face the Eagles, so that could be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go through this. Um, I I don't know if I have to say it every time, but I got 5 tiers. Um, and this is kind of more of if you're a fan of the team, what do you think? So the bottom one, dreaming on being on the clock. These are teams that it's like, yeah, our season's over. Let's see where we stand in the draft order.
Right.
Because I don't know if you saw NFL has started to do like, what is the draft order as of today?
Really? Jeez.
Yeah, I saw actually the Browns are third. So that's fun. Actually, I don't even know they would be third because they would say, because I think they actually have this one.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just gonna rattle them off. I got the Panthers here, the Jags here. Shout out to the Jags for actually winning a game. You got the Rams, the Bengals, the Browns, the Titans, and the Patriots. We do live in a world where if the season ended today, that the Patriots would have the number 1 overall pick. And they also have yet to play their starting quarterback, who they drafted very early on too. But yeah,
they're playing him this week, right? I thought I saw that he's.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Yeah, that Brissett is benched and Drake Maine is starting.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are our bottom teams. I think most people would say I didn't have the Dolphins there, and I'll explain why, but
okay.
Most people would say like bottom 7 teams in the league there.
Right.
Next tier, September is over. These 6 teams, like their first month of the season might have been a little rocky. But I think they're going in and they're like, well, September is over. Let's try to improve. Let's try to keep getting better. I have the Bears there. I think the Bears with like Caleb Williams has continued to progress. I think he's gonna really start to turn it on here.
He's getting better. Yeah.
I got the Colts here. The Colts have had some injury stuff with Anthony Richardson. The Raiders, I don't know what to do with the Raiders. They're such a weird team.
Broncos spanked them this week.
Yeah. I have the Jets here too. I think the Jets, it's like September is over, our coach is gone. Let's get him out. Let's keep it going. The Chargers too. The Chargers have had kind of a weird season. I know that they've had kind of a challenging schedule, but like they should be better than they are. And then also the Dolphins. I have the Dolphins here because like Tua will be back at some point.
Right.
And your hope is that you can kind of just hang on enough until he gets back.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. I think the Chargers is the only one I would be on the fence with, but they because I think they're gonna have a good next third of the season, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think they might too. It's like you can't fault them for losing to the Chiefs. Everyone loses to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And the Steelers also have a really good defense. So they're gonna come out of their bye against Denver, Arizona, New Orleans, and the Browns.
Yeah.
So that looks like it could be 4 wins. They could easily move up there.
Yeah.
Next tier, are we good? question mark. These teams, like, I think they're asking themselves, are we good? Are we not good? I don't know.
Wow.
The Cardinals are there. I don't
Right.
know. I also don't know what to do with the Cardinals. The Broncos continue to win games out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bo Nix, is he actually good? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, the Packers still had kind of like a weird season, so I don't know what to do with them. Also, the Giants, like, I don't know if the Giants are actually
Wow.
good or if they're
Moved
just kind
up.
of, yeah,
It's
I
moved
don't
up.
know. I wouldn't be surprised if they're right back down in a couple weeks, but you never know. The 49ers, they've had a
Oh,
really odd season.
yeah.
Um, and you start to wonder how if it's going to start to get late early, especially with the Seahawks doing what they're doing. Um, so I don't know. And then also the Saints. The Saints started out so good, and now it kind of seems like they're not.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if they're good,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. No, that one is good. I don't have any qualms with that one. I think the Saints are going to drop down over these next few weeks, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think they just kind of they hit the right teams at the right time.
Yeah.
Next tier is don't let us get it. These teams I think are they're either would be in the playoffs right now or they've kind of had some shaky moments, but like when push comes to shove, these aren't the teams you want to face come playoff time in January. I have the Bills there. The Bills have kind of struggled recently, but I think they're still really good. I don't think anyone wants to face Josh Allen except for maybe Patrick Mahomes. So
What were they
uh,
thinking at the end of that game on Sunday? Did you see it? They did four passing plays and they were one at like the 2 yard line. It was just the oddest thing to me that no coach said, "Wait a second, let's run one of these plays," you know.
yeah,
But go ahead.
even
Yeah,
if it's a
I totally.
keeper,
Yeah, it was just really, really, especially as good as Josh Allen could run too. It was a really odd ending to what was a really good game, with the Texans. But go ahead.
next is the Cowboys. Cowboys still are kind of an odd team,
Yeah,
but also like you still don't want to face them come playoff time. You just
yeah,
don't. Um, the Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins seems to be coming alive. I think he's won like 3 straight primetime games. What a wild Thursday night game he had there.
yeah.
Um, also on that note, the Bucks as well are
Hmm.
on this tier. Baker is still proven to be pretty good. So yeah.
Yeah.
Another team is the Steelers. The Steelers defense is still like very scary, especially when you have TJ Watt in there and healthy. I wouldn't want to face them in the playoffs.
Hmm.
Also you got the Eagles. They had a bye, but still like Saquon is still Saquon Barkley. So
Yeah.
um and then last but not least on this tier is the Ravens. After a really brutal start, the Ravens have kind of turned it on.
Oh yeah, yeah,
One of the better games of the year, them against the Bengals last week. So
yeah, yeah. I was shocked that they won the game. I was. Oh, it's almost over. It was like a minute and change left. I saw it, and then at the next scroll it said that the Ravens had won.
yeah. Um, next year, this is the last one. Dreaming of New Orleans. These are teams that are like, I think that we can actually make it to the Super Bowl. Um, and I have here Kansas City. Um, it seems like they just can't lose.
5-0. Yeah,
And then also the Lions. The Lions had a bye. I think it just kind of some of the teams that would be below them lost, so I think it puts them higher. The Texans, I think it was a big statement win for them. Um, come late December, beating the Bills will kind of give you that little edge
hmm,
as far as tiebreakers. So the Vikings, I mean, how are the Vikings still winning games? I know Sam
amazing.
Darnold was like, yeah, look at that, Jets, but uh they're still doing great stuff. Also the Commanders. I mean, you know that they are in first place right now.
Yes, yeah,
Um, I mean, I know Caleb Williams was like the prohibitive favorite for Rookie of the Year, but it's got to be Jaden Daniels after 5 weeks.
oh, no
Uh,
doubt, no doubt.
and then last, I don't know if they really fit here or not, but I have the Seahawks there. Uh,
I think they should be there. Yeah, I think they should be there. That's even though they lost to the Giants, but they've got a good young coach as well. So I like all this. I think the question I have for you in that top tier is why are people surprised that the Chiefs are 5-0? There are some people that are like, they've barely been winning these games. And they plugged in some veterans. Kareem Hunt is back with them. And I think he had 130 yards the other night. And Juju is back on the team, or at least, he's off the injury list or wherever he was at. And I know they've had some injuries, but boy, I mean, the Chiefs are just they to me look great. I don't see why do you think people are a little bit skeptical of the Chiefs?
Well, I think it's kind of they've become the Patriots where
Yeah,
you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, and then it never
it never
happens.
does. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
because like they should be like, I mean, you could go through and I mean you could do this with every team. Um, they had the one win over Baltimore where the receiver's foot was just over the line.
Yeah.
Um, the the pass interference call that was called in favor of them, pass interference call that should have been called but wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, there's
Yeah.
always going to be that, but I feel like it's very magnified with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But also, like, when you're a good team, you find ways to win.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can take something like a bad penalty and overcome it.
Yeah.
You will take advantage of a awful referee call or luck not going your way. So like I think it's less about luck, but more about like they have the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
They have one of, if not the best coach in the league. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, absolutely. One of the all-time great coaches with Andy Reid, no doubt. All right. I love that list. I'll post it. I wasn't able to post it into the show notes. I'm going to try again, but I did post it on Facebook when I posted the link to the show. So hopefully people can chime in and agree or disagree as they see it. So last thing we have before inspiration is what are you going to be watching this week? And I know everybody there will be glued to the 1 o'clock game, Browns at Philly to take on the Eagles. Woo! What are you thinking?
it's a big game for Philly.
Yeah,
And
not a big
it
game
might
for the
be the
Browns.
last game that Deshaun Watson starts. So
Okay, all right. Um, how about Washington at the Ravens?
that's an interesting one. That's one of those that you
Yeah,
didn't think was going to be a good matchup.
yeah, yeah. Only because this was the matchup from my childhood that I looked forward to every year. Steelers at the Raiders at 4 o'clock. I don't know if that's a big
Oh,
game
that's gonna be
for the
fun.
Raiders. Yeah, but that should be fun, right? But the big one I think that will be televised coast to coast is Lions at the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's a rematch from last year.
Yeah,
The weird eligible receiver penalty play.
yeah, yeah.
So
I think Detroit is going to smoke Dallas. I think Dallas has played well these last few weeks to get themselves a little bit back into it, but I think they're going to run into a buzzsaw with the Lions. I think the Lions are a bad matchup for them. Um, and then Sunday night, Cincy at the Giants. Couple of straight nights here where MetLife Stadium is going to be rocking. Cincy comes in here Sunday night to take on the Giants. Are you hopeful on that?
uh I should be more hopeful than I am.
Okay. Jeez. Okay. All right. Bills at the Jets.
Those at the Jets will be a lot of fun.
Should be fun. I think the Jets will win that one. I really do because I think they're gonna catch the Bills at the right time. The Bills haven't played that great over the last couple of weeks. I think they're gonna catch the Bills here at the right time. So I think they might win that one. All right. Well, I mean, this is just a sports fan's dream this time of year, right? I mean, we got baseball games already started. Quadruple header today, right? Did I say that right? It's 4 games, quadruple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think this is the last I read that this is the last time that you're gonna have more than two games in a day.
in a day. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but also we could be looking at a crazy let's dream for a minute that the
Right.
Mets and the Yankees both make it on to the LCS,
Right.
which would be Would that be the first time since 2000? 2001?
Um,
No, 2000.
2015 was the last time the Mets were in the LCS.
Yeah, the Yankees got knocked out by the Astros that year. So,
I'm sorry.
uh,
I know how much you love the Astros. Um, I'm looking for something as we get ready to transition to. I guess I didn't. Maybe I just took a screenshot of it. We get ready to transition to inspiration. You ready to do that?
yeah,
All right. Oh, I found it. Here we go. You know, Kenny, th- there's so many things that are much bigger than sports, even though we love it. Obviously, a lot of things happening in the world and in our country this week. The storm is just, we feel so helpless. All we can do is pray, right? And that's big, right? When we pray. But when we look at baseball in this time of year, there are just certain players that I'll watch, and the spotlight really doesn't bother them. There just have been, Reggie Jackson was sort of like that, Mr. October, and there's been players like that throughout the years. And even though he's having a tough time, I had to look it up because there's still something about Aaron Judge because he's the same all the time. Even there's the big spotlight. He's not doing well right now. He's probably got to feel the weight of the Yankees on his shoulders. Maybe like you said, not as much as a few years ago, but I think as he goes, the Yankees go. But I looked at his Twitter page and he still has Second Corinthians 5:7, for we walk by faith, not by sight, on there. And it made me look back up. And I probably realized this at some point, and maybe I've forgotten that he's just a strong Christian guy. The way he grew up, the way he treats others, you could tell, the way he does interviews, the way he interacts with fans, especially young fans. He's just a good dude, man. And you could just tell that he's touched by the Lord and that, listen, we all hope he gets red hot here so that the Yankees can get back to the World Series. But if he doesn't, for whatever reason, and the Yankees lose, he's got peace. So Aaron Judge definitely has a spot because I'm watching him. He's got to be a little frustrated these first couple of games. Man, oh man, he doesn't show it. He just goes right back to the dugout. So it's going to be okay. And I think just as importantly, his team feeds off that. Like, I don't see any panic in the Yankees. We didn't talk about that play at second base with Jazz Chisholm. He was out. I'm sorry. He was out on
oh, he was
that play.
definitely out.
And I don't know how the replay didn't overturn that. But nonetheless, even if they were down 0-2, I think he would still show up the same way today. And the Yankees, I think, feed off of that. So anyway, Aaron Judge, my inspiration today. And I'm sure you didn't see that coming.
I did not see that coming. Uh, I'm actually going with he might be no, I don't think he's public enemy number one here. But Kelly Carpenter, guy hit the
Yeah.
three-run home run off Class A.
Yeah.
Was interviewed afterwards because that's what they do. And I don't know, there's not much more to this than I saw the clip and I was like, oh, that's cool. Um, he'd said, yeah, I feel like I received a lot of God's grace to do that.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and then kind of kept going on like how he was excited, like happy for the team and all that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to Kelly Carpenter, but not too loud and don't win tonight.
Well, yeah, especially you live in the territory where you can't speak too loudly against the Guardians or the Browns. You could probably speak against the Browns these days, and people are like, "Yeah," but I think the Guardians will right themselves today. I can't see them losing this series. I just, and not after the year they had. And you got two
Yeah,
rookie managers that just don't know any better. And what I mean by that is that they're just like, okay, we're just going to keep playing ball. And that's Stephen Voigt there and Carlos Mendoza here. Mendoza has just done an outstanding job. And, you know, I'll just say this from earlier in the year and then we'll wrap up. I wasn't crazy about when he made the decision to cut, is it Ramirez, Johan Ramirez, the pitcher that threw the glove into the stands? Because,
oh yeah,
he was really frustrated. And then I thought he had struggled with his English when they interviewed him after. And because I think he was trying to say he was playing bad, and it came out that the Mets were playing bad. but Mendoza stood like his ground, and Mendoza is a player's manager. So, and we're finding that out as the season goes on. But Mendoza stood his ground and said, "Nope, that's it." And then around the same time, he moves Lindor into the into the leadoff spot, and it was just there was like a flip of the script there of the switch rather, flip of the switch there for the Mets, and they had that it seems like a long time ago, right? They had that London series against the Phillies. You remember that? And
Yeah.
they lost that first game when Bryce Harper did the soccer slide. He hit the home run against Mania, and then the Mets were losing that second game, and they rallied in the ninth inning, and it was just a weird rally, and they wound up winning that in like extra innings, I think in like 11 innings, and then they took off from there. That was right at the beginning of June. So Mendoza and Vogt rather, I think the two of them are the bright lights aren't bothering them, and I think both of them are going to wind up in the LCS. So we'll see from there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll
yeah,
be fun.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Man, that pitcher's name is actually escaping me. He pitched with the Cubs the rest of the year. I think he did relatively well. He wasn't a bad relief pitcher at all. But and he was it was unlike him because he seemed very calm and cool on the mound. But then remember we found out that he had a son that was very sick and he had a few other things that was happening in his personal life, which I thought the Mets should have been a little bit more, hey, send him on leave for a week or something like that. But Mendoza was like, nah, he's out of here. He's not what we want, to show on the field. But you can't throw stuff in the stands, especially now with the net there. You had to toss it over the net. So um, anyway, are you ready to take us home? We got a lot to talk about next week.
Yeah, hopefully we're talking about some LCS fun stuff.
Yes, Yankees and Mets in the LCS.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
So this is Kenny Squared On
Kenny.
with Sports on the Positive Fifth. We'll see you guys next time.